My name is Couchcoop and welcome to my Monster Hunter Wilds single-player offline review. None of this content features any SOS flares, and this account is actually banned from PSN due to it being foreign and not being able to update it in the local currency. So this is very much a single player offline look at the game. I was a bit concerned about DRM, but the good news is everything is there for the single player who doesn't want to buy PSN. Helldivers 2. This is the account, however, that I used to play Iceborne and Monster Hunter World over 1,000 hours, and it did recognise that on the save data, so some good news came of it. I'm lucky enough to remember in 2009 there was a Monster Hunter demo released for the PlayStation 2, and I will never forget it. Defaulted to Greatsword, obviously, and you fought the boar first, and I was like, what is this crazy game? It's never gonna take off. I'm also now making myself out to be Instagram's greatest Monster Hunter set capturer. Please hop on over for some very recent Monster Hunter Wilds content. I will be doing this video again for the co-op online once I've got to end of that campaign, and yesterday we had patch 03, which hasn't changed anything massively on the console side, but let's get to that first. Let's talk about the game's performance and graphics. After looking at the three options, which are performance, balanced and quality, pretty self-explanatory. Performance does touch 60 frames per second. Then we have quality, which has got something quite interesting attached to it. But I went with balance because I'm on a 4K TV. I want to see some semi-decent frame rates, but more importantly, loads of detail. And we do actually get it in droves. I actually really enjoy this RE engine. Dragon's Dogma 2 doesn't come with as many performance options as Monster Hunter Wilds, so this one got the better end of the deal. PC owners are having an absolute nightmare with this currently, and it's causing a lot of problems on Steam reviews. As a PC owner, I can understand that pain. But when I look at Capcom, they don't have the best optimization heritage with porting things over on PC. Yes, there are some exceptions, but I don't view them as a traditional PC developer slash studio. But they will get on top of it, they always do. Holy crap, this spider was damn good and damn early. I say damn early because some of you may have played the beta. A lot of these early monsters are no surprise, but this one was awesome considering it's one of two arachnid style enemies in the front end of the game, the second one being one of the most iconic monsters and sets for me in the series. Just briefly to finish on that performance thing with balance mode, I am getting frame drops. It is not plain sailing by any stretch. It normally happens out on the Wilds plane when there's a lot of NPC monsters, so to speak, herds, that sort of thing. When it comes to one-on-one fights within secluded arenas, it's kind of consistent. Weapons wise, I do actually main the charge blade, but second to that is the insect glaive, the gun lance and the light bow gun. I may even throw a bit of switch axe in there, so I've got quite a plethora. But cosmetically, the charge blade with its shield and the different poses, it's one of the more interesting weapons, and it's got extremely deep meta with how to get those files filled up, and they've increased that even more with this sequel. Check out the spider lair. I do dabble in the bow, and that has become more interesting because we have a different mechanism when it comes to targeting or breaking sections of the monster. Let's talk about that now. There is going to be constant capture interludes. I feel I should warn you about that now. I'm a bit obsessed with its photo mode, which is a mini game in itself, to be fair. It feels like entering a cheat code to get to the areas that I enjoyed in Monster Hunter Worlds, but maybe that's a tutorial video that will be coming up. Another legacy monster shown off here in the front quarter, Konga. Let's get back to this targeting system and the wound meta game. What happens is when you give the monster enough crap, there'll be a red smear somewhere on it indicating that that section is vulnerable. You have to have L2 held in, but then R1 becomes the most unbelievable damage dealing move you possess. You will home in on that targeted red section, and with any luck you'll knock the monster clean over or damage that part, which automatically appears in your inventory, so you're collecting as you go. Each weapon has a difference in delivering punishment on that R1 button when L2 is held in, indicating the red patches. The charge blades is particularly OP, I feel. Same with the gun lance and even the insect glaive. You become obsessed with these red patches, and getting the monster over consistently is kind of quite easy. This does change with bigger, more dangerous monsters, but it's a very different system to the traditional games, and I do and don't like it. It just depends on what monster I'm fighting and what weapon I've got equipped. But it's a new thing, and anything injected into the series at this stage in its life is kind of cool. I think the devs are going for a slightly more accessible and more cinematic experience for the new player. When a monster goes for you, you can put a shield up at the last second and actually get a close quarters bit of cutscene gameplay. It's pretty amazing, it's pretty empowering. It does feel incredibly one-sided when you're fighting something colossal and you slam that shield down and end up pushing it back. But again, it's all in the name of dramatic cinematics. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I've got to talk about the wilds themselves. This is a crazy one for me. Every time I want to see the game looking good, it is overcast, it is raining, it is nighttime, it is evening, it is dawn or dusk. I rarely get to see the game midday, full sunshine, all colours blazing. You don't even realise this grass is yellow half the time you're playing the game. I cannot stress enough, it is the most frustrating thing. For me to try and get these nice captures, I need contrast, I want to see the HDR, and half the time it is overcast. I'm from the UK, alright? I get enough of that 6 months of the year. There is no way to meddle with the time. You can't go to your camp and have a sleep. You can travel around a bit, that does exceed the timescale slightly, but I had this with Worlds as well. I would set up a capture with Worlds and then have to go off and do something else. Keep my eye on the TV to wait for that sun to get in the right section of sky to make sure that capture looked perfect. Again, I have kissed a girl. This was that Kongugagala set, and there's something else happening with the outfits or the armor sets themselves. In Monster Hunter World and in Rise to a certain extent, every set had what's called an alpha and a beta, so there would be two options. You could swing those out and put like a different helmet on with different feet, and it would all just be awesome because you'd have these choices. One of them would always be more badass than the other though. With this, you get the male and female variant, regardless of what character you choose. There's no alpha or beta. The modern audience may disagree, but I feel that's a huge loss. Now we're in the forest now, the Scarlet Forest, and check out these visuals. And guess what? We're in an actual campaign walk-in cutscene. Photo mode is locked. I was like, I want to get off my mount. I've got to capture all of this. Oh my god, there is sunlight in the forest. But yeah, you can't interact with any of it. You march straight through it in actual fact. Also, and this one has blown my mind, the mount, as opposed to the Palamute in Monster Hunter Rise that had a 3 armor set slot, has no cosmetic change apart from a helmet, and you can move the feather color. That one is a ball dropper, guys. Patch it, fix it, sort it. The mosquito reveal dude is super cool, and his fight is everything I expected, with loads of environmental effects getting put into play by the monster that you're fighting. Now that moves me over to environmental effects that are in your control. Monster Hunter World is full of them, and I was expecting a lot more with Wilds, as we saw a few in the beta. But every cave I'm in, I scout the ceiling, I look around, there's no falling rocks, I can't see any hook points to mount the slinger to pull down a huge column of destruction onto the beast. I may be looking in the wrong place. I was very surprised at that. They do keep the slinger ammo varied though, leaving quite a lot lying around, and it is an emphasis to sort of get all kitted out on that front prior to going into the fight. You might better find something that the monster's very vulnerable to. So quite a lot of this negativity does go out of the window when you fight your first sort of apex or world or wilds boss, so to speak. Radar was cool in the beta, but with all of this added knowledge of how that combat meta actually works, you feel loads more empowered. Those wound sections are at difficult to reach areas of the monster, so you've got to use your brain to be able to get to them in time, and that mount system feels quite dramatic if you're on something that's flying and it's got more than one method to knock you off. By the way, it is completely identical to Monster Hunter Worlds, and we do not get to mount the monsters and ride them around like a crazy cowboy. Rise, you kind of won with that one. I do just want to address something, because I keep bringing up Rise, and I want to talk about how they've done away with the traditional sort of cooking system. You don't go to a vendor, there's not a chef. It's all done within your own tent with some added ingredients if you've found them. No Dango song, no Meowster chief chef. I'm dealing with this in my own time. But it brought me on to the topic of this game not feeling very Japanese. I'm talking about the NPCs, I'm talking about the music, I'm talking about the food, ingredients, even the landscape. It's far more international now. And I think that's consequence to a number of things, but it's a AAA full-blown global game now, franchise rather. You think about that hub in Rise with the cherry blossom and the dangos, things are very different over in Wilds. There's that day-night transition right in the middle of one of my painful captures where I'm trying to maneuver around the frame drops. Now all of that is sorted in a second with something you probably wasn't expecting. I think what also might have happened, particularly with myself, back in 2018, the release of Monster Hunter Worlds was right against an upscaled version of Generations that had come out on the Switch. That was the best graphics you had on a Monster Hunter game, full stop. And then Worlds came out, so not only was it a generational jump, it was also a brand new, unbelievably detailed engine compared to the previous games. No load screens, indigenous life just crazy, and the space and the different variants. The first time I saw the Coral Highlands on that game, I will never forget it. Those pinks, the size of it, how everything looked naturally incorporated into the environment. I'm talking about the indigenous life and the monsters to a certain extent, pink Raytheon, etc. However, in Monster Hunter Wilds' defense, the last time we saw this guy was on Monster Hunter 4, and he is one of my favorite and iconic monsters from the entire series. I'll show you the set in a second. It's gundamn good. His little minions, the way that it operates traditionally with the two-tier system, he doesn't crawl underneath too much as he did in the original, but it's still an amazing homage. The scenery and atmosphere for this entire fight kind of cancelled all of that aforementioned out. It was like a massive high five. Now check out this slinger kill. I can't help compare George Orwell Basin to the Rotten Vale. You guys all know about those similarities. They're both like underground, ridden with disgusting things and darkness, crawling leeches. You guys know the aesthetic they're going for. They're both quite parallel, and I was surprised as well that that's where it is with the game progression and where it turns up in Wilds. I do love the octopus dude though, and his arrival is pretty damn epic, and he has got the most amazing set that will be on that Instagram account in the very near future. I've got to grind for him. It's a little bit difficult. That brings me back to the targeting system. You may be after something on the head or severing one of his tentacles, and that could be done quite well, being literally able to go right for that particular part. Another thing that was quite unexpected, if you're familiar with Rise, you'll know about the bug system. The bug system essentially helps you get off the ground when you've been knocked over after a hit. It also is a very aerial combat mechanic. Now, I was struggling with lying on the ground and having to deal with not having the wire bug loads, but if you tap up to call in your mount, it's a lot snappier and quicker. You can even have your weapon out, you can even be semi-conscious, and you'll be whipped up and taken away. But if you do have experience with this game, calling that mount in when you're in the hub to swap your weapons is the most difficult thing, because they are going at 40 miles an hour. You have to put R2 in to stop it, to get it to stand still. Getting the mount to stand still is half of this game's meta. Show us that full set. Come on, stop mucking around. I'll show you the charge blade. It does come with the glaive, and I think there's also a gun. Don't quote me on that, but Nascrilia, Nasceralis. I also, in the nicest way, hate everyone in that campaign, apart from Gemma, the Forge Lady. I just despise all of their faces. I'm not interested in any of it. Some of it is just because I'm trying to get through the game as quick as I can, and every cutscene slows me up. Every bit of dialogue, every slow walk somewhere just gets me angry. So it's not the content's fault. Trying to think of one of my favourite storylines out of the series, and it could be the Miasma Gormangala stuff from Monster Hunter 4, closely followed by Rise. Sunbreak has got a bit of a twisty tale attached to it. Let's just say that. Guardian Rathalos, though, holy crap, that's a variant no one has seen before. The set, unfortunately, isn't a variant. That's the original Rathalos design, and I'm like, bros, I think some of this, and I can already feel some of you vets about to get into the comments, is going to be saved for Master Rank. It is, isn't it? There's going to be a huge expansion. It's going to be absolutely massive, and we're going to see loads more variant monsters and probably a massive new biome. And back to that campaign content and cutscene stuff, I have got to do all of this again on a different profile to get online, and I am going to dread it. And if you're trying to introduce this series to someone new and you have to wade through all of that stuff, if I didn't know the size of the cauldron of gold at the bottom of that rainbow, I would never go through it all. I'd be like, this isn't an ARPG. This is some boring story about some lost kid and his annoying family. There's like princesses and kings and an admiral and stuff, isn't there? Where are all that lot? Okay, this fight is badass. You use the knockback mechanic, you're looking for the red marks, you generally have to watch out for where those attacks are landing. Whole thing comes together. This is really where the start of the game starts. So you might remember me talking about the performance tweak that sort of helped me with the frame drops. And yes, everything has to be done on the main screen. So I figured I could only get a frame cap if I went over to quality. You'll see these sub-menus, and you can get it to cap at 30 frames per second and at a quality mode. And for some reason, it just completely pegs that 3.0 completely. Nothing drops at all. And I think with the balance mode, it is making frame adjustments and even resolution adjustments on the fly, and that's proving a nightmare for the engine. So I migrated over to quality and at 30 frames pegged. A little bit annoying not being able to see 60, and playing this game on performance at 60 frames per second is one hell of a thing, but I'd only really like to do it on a 1080 monitor. these water and splash mechanics are unbelievably good, and they also come out of the pad as well. I didn't feel as much haptic pushback as I'd like to feel on the guard with the charged blades, but other weapons have a bit more, particularly the light bowgun and heavy bowgun. They are also loads more interesting. Instead of the bomb implanting in the ground with the light bowgun, you've got a build pierce bullet thing. You get about 3 of them and they replenish a bit like before, but the red dot marks now become integral. If you land a build shot into one of them, it's either clean knockover or breaking apart. So there's a lot more incentive to go range with Monster Hunter Wilds. Hence the reason I'm looking at the bows again. Both of Us Fallen Asleep here is classic Monster Hunter. Do I feel that I need to buy a Pro to be able to play this game properly at its top or intended settings? No, not really. I've kind of got enough to work with here. I would, in an ideal universe, love to have a PlayStation 5 Pro, and then maybe one on the way next year, 2077. I do just keep catching myself looking in the bottom right of my monitor at the date, and it says 2025. And you remember me talking about 2018 when the first Monster Hunter sort of current gen game came out, Monster Hunter Worlds. That is a damned long time ago in technology years, or terms rather, and I'm not sure if Wilds is going to have the monumental impact on me that Worlds did, mainly because, as mentioned before, their engine jump and generational leap was just a huge gobsmacker. Is this a gobsmacking to me? Certainly, but in different ways. Most of it is in the form of really cool, amazing, massive monsters in a new engine and an added bit of combat change with different meta on some of those, or all of those weapons really, with the targeting mechanic and that new R1 button. This is one of the strongest games to come out this year so far for me, and I also am taking on board the Monster Hunter fanboy bias. I think as an action role-playing game is absolutely stunning. I did just review Avowed, very different kettle of fish, but still something I feel that Wilds has got to compete against. Did I hit any brick walls with this solo single player? Nope, everything fine so far. Do not feel the need to do a Dark Souls OP someone help me, but that is likely to change. Hence the reason I've got the co-op video coming up, and I will also put out a video if we see any major patches to check that performance or any additional content. I was, of course, Couch Coop. I never caught this thing. I will, of course, see you down there.